Wagwan pussies, I'm here to prove to you that kickflips, once you figure out the tricks and tips of how to do them, are actually pretty darn achievable and quite easy once you get used to it. And to prove it, I'm going to put this pair of really expensive drunk simulation goggles on, and I'm going to do it first try without any cuts in the video. So let's try that right here. This is the first time I've worn these in a couple of years, and then we're going to get into the tutorials and how you're going to do it yourself. My God, these are worse than I remember. Okay, so first try kickflip. I can see 2 boards. Let's see if I can. All right, we know where the board is. If this fails, the whole video is scrapped. Okay, a heavily drunk kickflip. I didn't know if it was clean, but it probably wasn't. Let's get into how we can make that happen for you. Okay, so with all the tomfoolery out of the way, going over 3 different variations of how you can hack your way into a kickflip. All of these are gonna help you with commitment. I'm gonna give you how to get the flip first, and then we're gonna take that into how we're gonna commit to the board afterwards. And hopefully by the end of this, you'll have a way that you can get your feet on a kickflip. And the last one in the list is how I learned to kickflip, because I, just like you, was one of the people that could get the board to flip after a while, but could never get both feet on it at once. But the last hack that we're going over, like I just said, is going to teach you how to finally get them 2 feet on the board. So let's get into the first one. All right, so getting into number 1. Now, the first thing you're going to need for this list is a few items as we go through, but this is the main one for this section. You're going to need either a hairpin or a clothesline pin. Either one will do, basically, as long as it goes onto the side of the skateboard like this. That's literally all you need. As I said, it can work for either, but I think maybe the hairpin is going to be a tiny bit better just because it grips the board a lot easier. But either way, we're going to take these off for now, and I'm going to teach you how to get the pop, how to get the flick, and that's basically what we're going to use these for. So come over here with me. All right, so first thing we're going to go over is the pop. Now, I need to go over this quickly because if you don't know anything about kickflips, I want this video to be the one that helps you learn everything in one go. It's not going to be too long. We're going to spend a couple minutes on each section, but this first one is getting the technique, and then we're going to go into more commitment-based ones for 2 and 3. So with all that being said, and by the way, you can always skip ahead with the chapters down below, so feel free to do that if you already know how to pop and flick. Right, so first of all, the popping section. All right, so the toes for the pop. Now, you're gonna wanna have to have these dead center in the tail and very much towards the very tip of the tail. Obviously, if you don't know, tail at the back, nose is at the front, but the toes of your foot is what's gonna be on this section of the board right here. You don't wanna have them here, you don't wanna have them here, and by God, you don't wanna have your whole foot on the board like this. There is no worse way to pop a trick than that, and I see so many beginners doing that, so I feel like that needs to be said. So you're gonna have your toes dead center. The reason you're gonna wanna pop from the dead center is because if you do, the board goes straight up. Now this is extremely important. If you pop even like a few millimeters or centimeters to the left or to the right, say if we pop from the left, look, I'm gonna step back because it's gonna go out of control. It pops like that. Like the tiniest bit of difference makes the hugest difference in the spin of the board. So even then, if we pop from the other side, look, board flips and spins, and we do not want that at all. So now that we've gone over exactly where we're popping from, which obviously is the dead center, because like I've just gone over, if you pop it anywhere else, the board's gonna have a mind of its own, but obviously you can control exactly where it goes, so that's why we're picking the center. So now we need to work on the flick. Now, a lot of tutorials will tell you that to have the kickflip flick perfect, you're gonna wanna have your foot about halfway up the board, and while this can be good for just getting used to getting the flick, you're not going to be able to land it like that because having your foot there just makes it so much more difficult and unstable. So if you're going to want to really get a good technique, you're going to want to have your foot somewhere up here near the front bolts. Now, this front foot is going to be at like a 45-degree angle, maybe covering that first bolt on the bottom left. And then if you skate goofy, obviously your foot's going to be like this on the other side of the board, and you're going to have your right foot forward. But for me, I'm regular, so I skate my left foot forward, but all of the same principles will still apply. So don't worry if you don't skate regular, this tutorial is still going to work for you. So the foot right here is going to be like that. The foot at the back is going to be right in the center of the tail. And as you pop down, you're going to want to roll this ankle like this. So instead of having the board like this and just going like that and just like kicking it like this, you have to kind of roll the foot. So it goes like that, and then that's what the peg is for today. So we're going to put this hair claw clip on the corner right about where those bolts are here. So if we put it like maybe here-ish, that's going to be where we want to aim our flick for. So it's going to be on the top left side of the nose of the board. And remember, if you skate the opposite stance, it's just going to be on the other side. So say if you skate goofy, which is, by the way, with the right foot forward again, you're going to have the same clip, but have it there instead. So you can adapt this to your own stance, like I just said. Now what we're gonna wanna do is to practice our flick, we're gonna have the board already like this, put your foot where I told you it should be, right there, and then what we're gonna do is we're gonna put the weight on the tail as if we popped, but not actually pop. Okay, so put your weight on the back as if you were gonna pop, but don't pop yet. Bang, like that, and then roll the foot and flick off the pin. That is the key to the flick. This is our target, and that's how you're gonna know exactly where to flick perfectly. Now, a good flick always comes off the end of the nose. That's how the board points, and you get a nice stylish one. So, weight on the tail, roll the ankle, flick the pin off. Simple as that, and that is exactly how you get the flick. Now we're gonna do the exact same thing, but actually pop the board as well. And I know I keep calling it a pin, but obviously it's a clip. You guys know what I mean, you're not idiots. So we're gonna chuck that back on there, and then we're just gonna go for the pop and the flick this time. So remember, exactly the same thing. Roll that ankle, flick it off, aim for the pin, and do the pop just like you would for an ollie, because obviously at this point, if you're learning how to kickflip, you can already ollie. So we're gonna pop down and aim to flick off the pin. See how perfect that flick was? It literally boned perfectly, and that is exactly what you want to do. And then as soon as you've got that and you feel like you can land it with one foot, take the pin off, and all of a sudden you've got your kickflip form down and ready. I would say just practice this a ton until you can get the flip perfectly, and then you're ready for step 2 and 3. So for the next one, we're going to need some tape, right? Electrical tape is better because it sticks to the concrete. This is what I'm going to be using here. There's 2 rolls here, so it's not actually that thick. So if I just break one of those off, we've got our single roll right here, our little donut of black tape. Gonna stick my drink down there real quick. Shout out to Liquid Death for sending me so much liquid I can avoid death this summer. So I'm gonna use my black tape right here. What we're gonna do, oh, and it's also easier for this section if we have a spare board. Not necessary in the slightest, but just makes it a bit easier to line up where we want the tape to go. And bear with me here, because I know so many people are like, oh, these stupid hacks don't work, just learn it yourself. Well, guess what? I don't care about learning it myself. I just want to get you guys learning it as soon as heavenly possible. So what we're going to do is we're going to line up where our bolt holes are, and we're going to put an X marks the spot, because that's going to be our landing zone, right? So say, for example, we're going to move this off the line. So if we've got this about halfway on our crack here, so we're going to put that there, move the board, and then line that up there, and then you're going to want to put another one down so you've got a cross. This is our landing zone right here. Real simple, real easy to remember. That's our top landing zone. Then you're going to put the truck back over the top, and you're going to do the same for the other set of bolts. Now, the reason why this is easier with the carpet board and not this is because obviously you've got this flat against the ground, so it's easier to remember exactly where everything goes. So put that one down there. And they don't have to be perfect to the millimeter, just so you've got a rough idea of where you're going to be landing is what we really need. Chuck that down there. We've got our landing zones right there. That's our bolts for the metaphorical board that we're going to be riding here. So stick that back on there. Now all we need is a tail section. So take one more piece off. Okay, so the final piece we're going to need is for our tail right here. We're going to stick that right there. Again, doesn't have to be pixel perfect, but just keep it there so you know exactly where we're taking off from. So if we remove the board now, we've got our bolts and our tail. Simple as that. So that's our landing zone. That's where we're taking off from. Let's put this back on top just for the second. Make sure everything's lined up as you can. Then get yourself a long piece of tape like this, and this is going to be our flick path. So for this one, you're going to want to set about there. So that's where your foot's going to start at this end, and this is where it's going to end off the board. So move that out of the way, just like that. That's our flick path. And now we have everything we need. I know this looks a bit ridiculous, but trust me, after I made this original video, like a short or something last year, so many people were like, oh my God, this actually works so good. So trust me with this one. While some of these may look silly, they really do work. So let's get into it. Right, so now that we've got exactly what we want, we've got our tail section, which is where we're gonna put our back foot. The start of our flick line is where we're gonna put our front foot, and then we're gonna jump, flick across the line. So you're gonna follow the line and then land with both feet over the X's. That's exactly how this one works. So remember, back foot on the tail, front foot at the start of the line, jump, flick, land on the crosses, and you'll look just like this. Just like that. And then just aim every time to flick and land on the crosses. Back to the start, flick, land on the crosses. And that is how you get used to flicking your foot out and then bringing it back to get on the bolts. The main reason I like to teach it like this is because so many people, they get good at the flick and then they just forget to bring the foot back to the board to actually land on it, so they end up doing this and then just landing it with this back foot. So instead, obviously practice this as many times as you can. Do this at home, do this in the garage, do this whatever, and do this in between attempts. So for example, try one on the board, then come back here and do this. And just like that. Remember to roll the foot like we did in part one. And just land on the bolts as much as you possibly can. And do that in between attempts, like I just said. And then if you've got one of these, this is always gonna be a good place to practice that exact movement, because you can do a kickflip on this just as easy as you can on a normal board. Exact same motion, hit the bottom, flick, and then land on the bolts. And you should end up with something like this. Right, and now we've got one final piece of this puzzle, and we're going to take it over to the climbing frame, because this is how you really nail down the commitment with all 4 wheels. Not with a carpet board, not using any tape. Let's get over there and get this done. Right, so part 3 of the video. Now, this is probably the best for commitment that I could possibly suggest. If you've got like a climbing frame like this, come here early in the morning so there's not loads of kids. And if you can get here before the spring break, summer holidays start in England, I recommend that too. I know they've already started in America, but hey ho, you gotta make do with what you got. Find a dead playground and get yourself dancing on them poles. Ones that are waist height are actually probably the best. Obviously you can do it with something like this, and the taller you are, the different size poles you're gonna need, but these things tend to have something of all sizes. So all you need to do is find something that you can either hold like this, or even better, 2 that you can hold like this. I know this is probably going to be quite rare, so we're going to go over the 1 pole situation as well. So armed with the knowledge of part 1 and 2 that we've already been over in this video, of how to flick the board and how to bring the foot back to get it over the bolts, now we're going to replicate exactly what we've learned there and bring it here. And obviously the biggest problem with most people's kickflips is they can't keep themselves in the air long enough to get both feet back on the board. Now that's what this is perfect for. So with this, you're going to do the flick, you're going to do the pop, you're going to do the flick, and then you're going to hold yourself in the air until the board stops flipping, and then you're going to bring yourself down to plonk on it. Now this might feel like, oh, well, how is that going to help me in the real world? Well, just training your mind to actually get used to landing back on the grip tape, even if you have to hesitate in the air for a second, is going to be invaluable in actually training yourself to get back onto the board and not freak out when you do. Because first time I ever landed a kickflip and I wasn't expecting it, I shot straight off the back and it was pretty painful. So let's try and avoid that where we can, yeah? So remember, pop, flick, hold yourself in the air and land, and it will look just like this. Obviously, the better you get at it, the more concise your flick is going to be. And you can hold yourself in the air pretty much as long as you want. So you can go like this, board stop flipping, land. Now obviously, like I said, having the 2 poles is ideal, and you can practice this loads as well. Like the more you practice this, the better you're going to get a commitment. And for a little story, right, I was teaching a girl that I teach how to shove it recently. She had landed 1 shove it in her entire life and hadn't done it for ages since then. I brought her over here, got her to land a few here, then got her to land a few on the other side, and then within like half an hour she landed 10 in a row on the concrete. So if that doesn't speak to how much this works, I don't know what does. So remember, hold yourself in the air, practice like that, and the more you can land over the board, better your brain is going to get at landing both feet back on. And the more wide of a stance you land with, the more stable you're going to be. Now say if you've just got 1 pole, it's going to be just the same pretty much, except this time we're going to be leaning more forward to hold ourselves in the air like that. Obviously, if you don't have the body strength to hold yourself in the air, you a bit. But obviously I'm just kidding. So you're going to want to hold yourself in the air and just try and do the exact same way. Okay, then all you have to do is the exact same. Hold yourself in the air, get the flick nicely, and you should just be able to land it just as easy. So do this over and over again until you can get it nice and consistently. Then when you've done that, you're ready to do the final step. Now that we've been over everything, we've got how to flick the board, we've got how to land back on the bolts, and we finally got how to hold yourself in the air and commit to the grip tape finally. Now all you need to do, come back to the board, and bear in mind, you're not going to do all 3 of these steps, and then the second you step back on the board, bam, bolts every kickflip. You're going to take a little while to get 1. Once you get 1, you're going to slowly get 2, and then 3, and then 5, and then the point where you get 3 in a row, that's when you've officially learnt it. And after a couple weeks of training, you too can kickflip in drunk goggles, but for now, you should just get one like this. See you in the next video.